everyone. My name's Chris Hall, and I've got my co-presenter Ria Garg here today. Welcome, Ria. It's good to see
Hi.
you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good to be back again in a
Yes,
webinar.
absolutely, absolutely. And today we're going to talk about incident management and what best practice looks like.
Exactly.
So, yes, we'll refer to some of the capabilities of what Isango can do as a particular system, but I'm also going to talk conceptually about what the NDIS practice standards require any provider to do. And being an IT geek myself, I'm really passionate about, not just the practice standards, but how a technology can support you to do innovative things that, a lot of systems maybe aren't doing, or perhaps you've not thought about yet as a provider. So, just to kind of set the scene before we go to PowerPoints, I remember when I first set up my business, I was completely guilty of doing the manual things. And, you go for registration, you can get given a policy and procedure on incident management, and you've got your Word document that people can supposedly fill in, but it means nothing because, quite frankly, it's so cumbersome to do it those types of ways. Like, in my opinion, it's really beneficial to have a system where you can, your support worker's got a shift, they're on the phone app, and if they're inside of the shift, they can just go click, create an incident, and it has to be a seamless user experience, because my true belief here is that if it's not a seamless UX, it just doesn't happen. And I think we're all guilty of this sometimes, aren't we? Where if it's a crap user experience, then it's just not going to happen. Yeah, would
Exactly.
you
And
agree with that?
yeah, of
Yeah.
course, because that's where most of people struggle, and they do it either manually or the user interface, wherever they're doing it, it's not up to mark, and it's confusing as well at times. So
Yes.
that's where providers are struggling these days. That's what we've noticed.
Exactly. Correct. So as we go through, we've got the chat box. And so if you've got questions, we'll kind of park them for the end. But please capture your questions in the chat box and we will get to them. I'll go to the presentation now and we'll talk through some of the concepts. And again, we're just talking conceptually about what are good ideas to do when we're doing incident management. So I'm just going to share the PowerPoint now. Ria, can you see that coming up on the screen? Is that all good?
Yes, all good.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. All right. So let's get into it, everyone. All right. So today we're going to talk firstly about stages. So whenever you have an incident, I think it's really important managerially to have different stages that the incident process passes through. So, if you talk about stage one of a backlog, those are all the incidents that have been logged, but you haven't dealt with yet. You haven't actioned. In progress speaks to itself. And then you might have a stage that you mark as completed. And then whenever an incident is then moved to the final stage of being closed, that's when an incident is locked in, and it's not meant to be edited anymore, because you've dealt with it fully and the outcomes are ascertained. So when you think about the NDIS practice standards, you've got to be able to demonstrate these types of stages, because otherwise you haven't got a process, right? It's not just about was the incident logged and that's it. It's demonstrating what you did with it as you go through things. I suppose, Ria, one question that I've got is that when you think about scaling a business, you might have, God forbid, but let's imagine it's Monday morning, you've got your managers meeting, you've got 100 participants, 200 participants, and maybe you've got like 5 or 10 incidents to deal with from over the weekend. That can become overwhelming. You might have multiple managers that are administrators in the system. Could you comment, Ria, on the idea of allocating to specific users and what the benefits of that is when you're in that initial stage?
So exactly, like when it comes through, I'm not sure of other systems, but with us as an Isango person, you can assign it directly to someone, so that, for example, if you've got, say, team of 20 admins, it's not going out for all 20 people, because that person might not really be looking at that particular participant and would not even know anything related to that participant. So assigning it to the right person, very first thing, it's way more quicker to have an output for. The second thing is it's compliant as well, because other person is not getting exposed to the information regarding that participant. So both the things are taken into consideration.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be your general manager, your ops manager,
anybody, whoever the organization is. It depends on their business rules. Every organization has set different business rules. It goes to which person. For example, in this company one, it might just go to the admin staffs, that's the rostering staff, right? In the second
Hmm.
company, it might go out for a general manager. In the third
Mm.
company, there might not be many people, it might directly go to the super admin, depending
Mhm.
on the company business rules.
Correct. And I suppose that's the IT advantage. And then organizationally, to throw some terms that people will be familiar with, it depends on how what you call your structure, right? It could be your team
Exactly.
leader, your services coordinator, operations manager. Some people have operations managers for particular regions. I know that some
Right.
of the large Sydney operators have got the Western Sydney manager, the Central Sydney, North Sydney manager, operational manager, and those people typically are assigned to X number of participants that are under their portfolios. So it's appropriate, isn't it, that they are the particular user to get assigned to the administration of the incident and therefore the activities that need to be logged.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And when it comes to the difference between completed versus closed, again, from the practice standard point of view, you have to show that you've wrapped it all up with a neat bow and it's dealt with. So I suppose once it's closed, there's a reporting benefit, isn't there, then, Ria? Because then you can say,
Exactly. Yes.
here's everything that's been dealt with. Yeah.
Exactly. So completed might be like, okay, what all were the tasks to finish that off, right? That is completed. But are there any other checks left to it? That's what the person who is marking it as closed checks for it. Does it
Mm.
have to go to someone? Is there something there? Is there a case study out of it or not? That's when we mark it as closed. Completed stands for everything that had to be looked at is looked at as per the person who is it is assigned to,
Yeah.
but there might be another person or that person as well who wants to give a final look to it, because after it is marked as closed, there we do not do any kind of edits in the incident, and it also goes out for reporting.
It's a good point because again, like think about the larger examples we just talked about. Like, let's say you're someone like Life Without Barriers or Next. You're one of the big organizations. You've got maybe 20 different people involved in these first three stages, but it might be a general manager or a QA lead or something that is the person to look at all of the activities that those team leaders, ops managers are saying. Okay, now this is dealt with. It's incompleted. It is in the completed stage. Sorry. Um, there should be probably that one quality person checking that they agree, because you're right, there might be an outcome that needs to be passed on for learning to all staff. It
Yeah.
could be that the team leader says it's done, but it's not. There's a peer review process. They might go, wait
Yeah.
a minute, you missed out on
Exactly.
this. Yeah. And then I suppose also, reporting requires the ability to download things as well, doesn't it? Because it's really common that, if you've got a recurring pattern happening, once you've finally closed it off, you want to be able to download that PDF and share it with the parents, with other stakeholders like the support coordinators, etc.
Exactly. So that's what can be done, and the further, if you want to download a specific incident report or all of it all together, or you want to do it on basis of specific date range, so that's where the reporting goes. Now the reportings are basically, they are created for helping business to know what at last they are able to see. And with incidents, it's more about whether it's reportable or not reportable. uh,
Mm.
a specific participant or a specific admin that it has been assigned to, you want
Yep.
to search it on basis of admins, like if did the ad how many cases are closed by an admin person, right? So
Yep.
that kind of reporting to help business find out whether the right things are being done or not.
Correct. Exactly. So, even though you can start a slide like this and go, oh, it's just 4 stages, there's a lot behind it that's important
Exactly.
from a best practice point of view. Okay. So the other thing that, a lot of systems don't do, but, I love that Isango does this, is that you can do attachments, right? So we put this inside of our Isango portal at Steadway in my business. And the point is that we allow the support workers to attach anything. And
Yeah.
it's so powerful in terms of like evidential points of view, in terms of like, well, show me a picture of the injury, for example.
Right.
Yeah. Or, if you called the ambulance, like, give me some documentation. Have you got like a discharge paper from the hospital? Like there's some really serious things that can happen. So, you don't want to have to be passing that around through text messages or emails. You want to attach it to the relevant thing, which is the incident itself.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the principle basically of, think about this, right? You've got the back office, you've got the managerial function, And it's a pain in the bum if the managers all the time are having to go back to the support worker and go, oh, can you send me this? Can you send me that? Why not offload some of that, or share the load?
Exactly, because the
Yeah.
point of having a powerful system is eventually cutting down on your admin time. And if you're getting stuck again in the same process of asking your support workers, they sending either the manual files or emailing you, it's the data is going to get lost somewhere or the other way.
Correct.
So the powerful system like Izango, which we say is powerful enough to do everything in the industry, we give you a space, dedicated space, so that anytime you have to go, just click on that and you're able to see everything related to that incident.
Correct, exactly right. So let's actually talk about some examples, right? So imagine you've got the ability to send, attach some files, right? If you've got a first aid incident, it might be necessary to demonstrate evidence of, again, God forbid, so let's say someone had a car accident and you want to take a picture of the scene as the ambulance is being
Exactly.
called, that could be very, very relevant and very, very serious to capture that. Yeah, and so that's why those types of evidence of the first aid, that's being done is relevant. Obviously, once the first aid is complete or it's being attended to. Also, correspondence, right? So sometimes, for various reasons, this might be in the realm of psychosocial, for example. Let's imagine you're dealing with a participant that's got a mental health issue, and the trigger point of the incident where they became heightened, for example, was then receiving an email from a family member that is a traumatic trigger for them, right? Something like that could be again attached as evidence of like, well, this came in, and I've sought consent from the client to attach this, or whatever the trigger point was, like some form of correspondence. It could be a letter. People receive letters in the post from from the DCJ or from the court system or from the AAT or the ART now. That all could be like something that's upsetting and that caused an accident or led to an incident that needs to be reported on. So, that's relevant. There's any form of evidence, right? So if you've got, I don't know, let's say let's say a fight erupts in a household or something, like you don't want these things to happen, but you want to attach things like that. When it comes to reportable incidents for the next one, unfortunately, this can happen, and there can be abuse of people with disability. So whenever this type of thing's happening, then we want to make sure we collect very factual statements, because as you all know, when there is something that happens in some form of abuse for a participant, providers are obliged to report that within 24 hours of management finding out about the reportable incident. So let's say hypothetically, there's some evidence of that abuse, then with the consent of the participant themselves, we could attach that evidence of the abuse, because then we can very factually report that to the Quality and Safeguards Commission. So that's the relevance of that kind of evidential attachment. Another thing could be medical matters. So let's say the incident occurs and it leads to going to the doctors and you have to get a blood test done or something. Then again, with consent, we can attach the details of the medical knock-on that occurred as a result of of the incident itself. And then finally, again, any forms of correspondence, like it could be, I went to the GP and I had to pay this bill, for the client. Capturing all of that tells management the exact status, and if management needs to come back to it, which they may well do, they can easily download those attachments, which is really important. So I guess that speaks to that. But again, think about it like the initial evidence of what's happened, and that's where the support worker uploading is very powerful indeed. Just to move on for a second, when we talk about what happens after you've lodged an incident, you then move from, say, backlog to in progress, right? Now, the idea of an activity note is twofold. You never want to kind of guess when further action on the incident was taken. And what you want to do instead is you could have various users. It could be the team leader, the operations manager, various colleagues could be collaborating to do the follow-up actions, right? So it could be a debrief with with the support worker. It could be a debrief with the client that's had an injury. And we want to capture the fact that we've done that debrief. So to do so, we could put it in the activity notes, which is like a digital post-it notes. I want to see from an audit point of view that it was Chris Hall as a user ID that posted that update on a particular time and date, right? So it's really powerful to see the progress over time. And again, when we link to the practice standards and the audits that you'll go through, when an auditor can open up the incident in a proper system, then they can see that indeed it was logged on Monday, and then by Monday afternoon you did a debrief. By Wednesday you'd spoken to the GP about how you can support the client going forward. It demonstrates best practice because it's auditable, basically. So those activity notes are, it's not just about good customer service. It's about the way that you pass audit, because again, can't emphasize this enough. We all need to have a process. It's not just about logging the initial incident and then closing it. It's about showing that, between the Monday that it occurred and then 7 days later, we've done these 5 things, and here's the evidence for it. Ria, how we talked about attachments as well. I suppose worth mentioning attachments here.
Yeah, so that's what. So while doing any kind of process, if there's any attachment you would want to add, for example, you're writing something down and say, while talking to the participant, as you said, you were debriefing with the support worker, and something that's left out from support workers end but had to be uploaded, and that's not uploaded by the support worker through the app. That's when the person can do it here. So we've got with the date and time stamp of when it was done. Further, if there's a follow-up you would want to add, that can also be done through this, so that your system is giving you a reminder for it.
Yep, correct. Some examples of attachments, some further examples could be, if it is a particularly serious or crucial incident, incidents can be traumatic also for the support worker. So you might want to have a transcript or the MP3 of the debrief with the support worker, because we hope it doesn't lead to ongoing problems. But whenever we do our first aid courses as NDIS professionals, they always talk about the importance of debriefing, right? Because if you see a car accident, or if someone gets picked up by the ambulance, or again, God forbid, if someone dies, like, you need to debrief on these things, because that causes psychological damage sometimes to the people that are involved. That can lead to a worker compensation claim, where someone might want to go off work as a result to get psychological help. So it's not just about ticking the box, so to speak, for how you're dealing with the NDIS participant. It's also about demonstrating duty of care for the way that you look after your employees. It's both. It has to be both. So really, you want to demonstrate that through the evidence to show the follow-up. Ria, when I passed my NDIS audit back the beginning of this year, what we did is we gave access to the auditors to Izango. Do you want to speak to that for a second, in terms of like how they can look under the hood?
Yeah. So basically, when we give auditors login, we can also discuss that with the provider who is our client, that what all other things they are looking forward to show it to the auditor, right? So that they don't have to go into the hassle. So that's the eventually, why do people have a system? The purpose of having a system is that you can do your billing correctly, and while you are going to go into audit, there is everything you have at one place. You don't have to go here and there. So that's the beauty of having a good system, that everything is done in, like, maybe when an auditor comes, everything is. So we had a client recently, they said generally it used to take 3 to 4 days for them to get the audit done, and recently when they took the system, they asked us to create an auditor's login for them. We just put in what we had to show it for, what they had to show to the auditor, and it was just done by 3 o'clock in that afternoon.
Look at that. And it's true. I can emphasize
yes,
that.
Yes, it is. And he was so happy that it was the first time the audit has gone that smooth, because everything what auditors would want, you are already keeping it compliant in the system from day one, so you don't have to go into the hassle of that audit is being done.
Correct. Yeah, because when you prepare for an audit, there are some things that you might upload, right? So you might upload, your policies and procedures. And like, I remember when I did it with AuditWise, they said, please upload all of your policies and procedures into our SharePoint in advance. So that, yes, there's a degree of prep activities that might be manual, but for everything else, like show me the process, show me the logging of the incident, show me everything, show me the way that your compliance docs for your staff are managed and dealt with and uploaded and validated. The more you can just use, how do you call it, the mega system, like have a mega system, have an Izango where you can just log on and go, oh yeah, I can see all the history. It's there. There's the timestamps. There's the evidence.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, again, activity notes and attachments are all relevant. Knowledge bases. Okay. So look, one of the things in the practice standards is that, we never claim to be perfect as NDIS providers. Things happen, right? What matters is that you're demonstrating good ethics, and you're demonstrating not just the willingness, but the actual outcome of learning, right? So, okay, this happened. We have 5 incidents where someone was slipping and falling in the house. And what we learned from that was that we need to mop the floors, whilst the participants are out on community access, and put the signs up and do this and do that. There's so many ways that you could learn from something to prevent and mitigate risks. So what's the idea of a knowledge base, Ria, and how can you actually digitize that?
So basically, we came up with this idea because we thought that there are so many incidents happening, right? And there might be a learning as well to that incident. So, for example, as you were giving, so like it can be anything. So there's a incident that has happened, and you feel that if about this incident you're going to tell to your support workers or anybody from your team, they are going to learn to it, and next time an incident like this might come up, so they know what. So it's like a first aid, so they know how to react to it and what are the steps to be followed. So that's when we say that we push it out to knowledge base. Knowledge bases are something where you put in all kind of your documentations, where your support worker can learn more about the organization, of how to deal with things, more about the policies, how to deal with everything. So once an incident has been completed, as I was talking earlier, once incident has been completed, while before closing the incident, you can look at the incident. Is there something deep into this incident which we need to think and can come up as a learning for other staff members? That's when you put it as a case study maybe, and just push it out on the knowledge base.
And if you think about it practically, what does that actually mean? A support worker, has the app that they, see their shifts on, and they clock into the shifts, they do their shift notes. That's all very well and good. But then they've also got these other menu items. And one of them, in Izango in particular, it's called the knowledge base. And so you can go there and see these learnings that we're talking about. So it's as simple as like a tick box saying send to knowledge base, and then you put in the case study, or you put in the video, you put in whatever it is that you want to easily share with the workers. And then it's available at the click of a button on their mobile phone, and you learn and demonstrate.
Exactly. And it's not just your support workers, it can be your admin staff as well. So for instance, if this incident is assigned to me, and because since it's only assigned to me, I am the only one able to see it. But what I feel that maybe intake staff can be more helpful. It will be helpful for them to know about this incident. So I can just put it out on the knowledge base of intake staff. So it can also be role based.
Let me unpack that. Let me unpack that a little bit, because you're describing roles, right? So is it correct that you can control, which role or roles you want to share it with? You've got the role of support workers or admin staff or intake staff. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So you can make it role based, and further it can also go down to the level of, if in that role you just want to show it to a particular set of people, you can also do that. So it gets even deeper down there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know some providers have learning management systems, and and that can be a separate system and all that stuff. But this creates an opportunity to directly communicate literally the learning from the fact that an accident happened, for example.
Yes.
So it's a unique way to capture something. So very powerful. Okay. The other concept is outcome management. So in the NDIS, as we all know, we've got stakeholders, right? So let's say you're working with a child, and that child might have the biological parent. It might also have the foster parent, you could have various forms of plan nominee that need to be informed when an incident occurs because we're dealing with a vulnerable person, right? So that could be one stakeholder. It also could be maybe there's a GP that needs to be informed of particular incidents. There could be the support coordinator.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, knowing A, what originally happened, B, what activities did you do to follow up, that's all relevant. But the final kind of stage from a stakeholder point of view is, well, what's the outcome of this, right? And that outcome could be, okay, we've had five similar incidents for Bobby, in the last month. We've looked at all of them, and the outcome is that we have taken the action to do behavior support practitioner training with our 5 support worker teams to reduce the likelihood of this happening again. That's as an example of an outcome management. So you need to have a place that you can put in if it's relevant. What's the outcome of this incident? Because then when you close it off finally and download that PDF that you can share with the stakeholder, it's kind of that final bit that says literally what are we going to do about this going forward?
Having a separate space for it is, first, it's more user friendly, so that person is just going on and can read through, and the second is it helps more in reporting. That's where it gets helpful. That's why people might say it's just a heading, but it's not a heading. That heading may change a lot of things and it gets more things more easier for you.
Yep, I agree. So yes, reportability, stakeholder management. That's the distinction of that section of outcome. Yeah. Okay. Now the next bit that I want to finish on is just going through some examples before we go to the Q&A. Is the idea of reportability, right? So when you finally close off an incident, you need to be able to filter on various factors so that you can get to various business outcome and training outcomes, essentially. So when you've got report filters that you can filter by participant, you can filter by date, by staff, by status, etc. And I'm going to kind of break apart the value of that in various different examples. So if we filter by participant, for starters, then having that clear range of incidents that have happened, that can be relevant in the S48 change of circumstances situation. So, a serious example for some clients that we've looked after is that, we've seen suicidal ideation. We've also seen injuries around the house when the support worker's not there. And all of those things are literally evidence-based things that the support coordinator can then use to submit that change of circumstance and go, look, things are getting worse. You can also use it as escalation during those change of circumstances once it's been submitted to kind of push the NDIS along, because it's quite known that they can take far too many months to actually get back to you. So, that's relevant of obviously doing a filter by participant. There's also risk identification. So you want to be able to do a clear report and say, oh, well, what are the recurring patterns here? And that's why filtering by participants is relevant. Of course, it's compliant with the practice standards, and the auditor can come in and go, show me all the, click of a button, show me all the incidents for Bob. It can lead to more positive things of improved quality of care. Because you can, as Ria said, you can report on the outcomes, and you can see, hopefully over time, that the quantity of the incidents for that particular participant have reduced, and that the outcomes are becoming smoothened out and more consistent. Trend analysis, of course, prevention strategies, and demonstrating. Look, the improved quality of care and demonstrating continuous improvement, they go hand in hand with the volume of the incidents, but also, as Ria talked about, the knowledge-based thing, right? Because you can literally report on that and go, look, we had 10 incidents, but now we've only had 5, and now we've only had 2, and here are the learnings that now all the staff are aware of. Is there anything you want to add to that particular filter, Ria?
I think you've covered most of it, but again, when you filter by participants, so the very first thing, as you said, it's the most important thing which matters here is that how many risks, how many incidents have been reduced over time. That's the major concern when you filter it by participant. So you know that, okay, are we going in the right direction?
Yes. Yes.
That's
Exactly.
where it's more helpful.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Now, if we combine filters, because that's also very powerful, when we combine participant and staff training, that can also, through a simple initial report filter, you can go, wait a minute, when Bob's combined with Sharon, something's not working. That maybe Sharon's
Yes.
triggering Bob. Like, we need to identify
Hmm.
the elephant in the room here, look at the care notes, do a
Right.
review. My God, get her off because Bob doesn't like
Yes.
Sharon, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
that's the, again, it's because again the major concern here is participant. We're looking after a participant, and if something that's not right for the participant,
mhm,
that's where we need to focus more. And
mhm,
maybe putting staff next to this filter will also help in mitigating if the staff is working well or not working well.
mhm,
Because if this
mhm.
person is doing well and knows what are the things that needs to be done in a particular incident for this particular participant, I think that's the right fit to every time do a shift for this participant.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I mean, of course, some things can be dealt with training, but also we are dealing with people that are often vulnerable, and that vulnerability can sometimes come from having lower self-esteem as a participant to speak up. Some people feel guilty or bad about quote
Right.
unquote complaining or moaning or being difficult about the
Hmm.
staff, and they're not. Like they've got choice and control, and it's their right to have people that they enjoy working with them, right? So
Right.
sometimes we need to take the lead as providers to go, this clearly isn't working. Let's go have a meeting with Bob and see what's really going on.
And that might also go into a thing called participant preference. Looking at
Mhm.
this, you will be able to also see what are the preferences this participant would have.
Good point, Ria, because in this Ango, you've got the function of preferred staff and also
Yes.
declined staff.
Yeah.
So let's say it was blatantly obvious that there's a real problem putting Sharon on with Bob.
Yeah.
Then you can make a managerial decision to add Sharon as declined staff because
Yeah.
you've debriefed with the client. And then the whole preferred staff concept is where, if someone really only ever wants to work with very specific staff, then you can use this quote unquote preferred staff team to
Right.
highlight and narrow things down, can't you?
Right. You can.
And that again, holistic. It's all holistic. Let's go to the mega system. We use the function called the job board, and that's where you've got an unassigned shift with Bob. And if I use the preferred staff, then only the preferred staff see the job,
Yes.
and therefore can
Yes.
express interest. It's not all the random people that aren't suitable for Bob.
Exactly.
Yeah, all links.
So
It all links.
everything is interlinked. Everything in the system is
Yeah.
interlinked because the core of the system is to give support to the participant. Everything has to revolve around a participant.
Yep. Yep. Completely agree. Big spider web. Okay, what else can you do by staff? So, of course, you can get accountability. So you can hold your staff accountable. You can be, they can have transparency about what's happening and whether that's a training problem. You can use that, therefore, with references to performance management, if need be. And performance management is not always like this big ugly word. It can be like, hey, we're noticing that this is happening. Can we give you some training on behavior support? It's not
Yes.
always like a kick you out and fire you. It's
Yeah,
it,
obviously.
it's how are you doing? Of course, when it comes to worker compensation, we want to reduce incidents not only for the well-being of the participant, but also we don't want those worker comp claims. We want to, keep our staff safe and keep your premiums down as a provider too. So yeah, you need to know, are the repeating patterns happening for particular staff? You might also then, we kind of alluded to this, like who's the best person on your team and therefore who should be on the shift structure with you. And then of course fostering that. Look, continuous learning is something that managers and provider owners can talk about, but it's only relevant if the individual staff also embrace it. And the way I look at culture here is that it's lived and breathed. So like you and I, to have a culture between us, we need to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like we it needs to be alive. That's what I mean by fostering a culture of continuous learning. We have to refer to something, don't we?
Right, right, right. Completely
Mm,
agree. And
mm,
see, when I talk to you, Chris, it's also there's more learning to what's going on. How do we put it forward? So it's again, it's a learning even right now between us as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, I realize things in this moment. It's never ending in the NDIS. There's no
Yes.
there's no one expert that understands the whole industry. But you've got to kind of share these stories with each other
Yeah.
to get the outcomes. Okay, one of the other ones is, of course, by stage. So which we talked about, backlog, in progress, completed, closed. You can demonstrate within your own managerial structure the progress tracking. So you can come back to that and you can reference it in your minutes, which you should be doing, right? That's necessary to have minutes for your auditor and also your own running of your business. You can allocate resources like we talked about before. What's the particular user that should be dealing with the particular incident? We've got transparency and communication. We've got, by having clear stages, there's the ability to do things in a timely manner. It's not just stuck in some random Word doc in some offline folder. There's some horrendous, horrible manual process. It's right there in front of you. Everyone can see it.
Yeah.
And of course, compliance with the practice standards. That's why stage reporting is important too. And then I guess the final thing is by date. So, you want to identify patterns. You want to, sometimes with a change of circumstances, you might have someone with you for 5 years. And maybe if the change of circumstance has only occurred within the last 6 months, well, it's quite important to be able to say start date, end date, and then click
Yes.
report. Yeah. And then we talked about the patterns with staff, right? Ooh, a minute, look at this. In the last 3 months, this is not working with Sharon. Something needs to change. So there's all these things. So I guess the intention of this presentation today was just to share some stories and be conceptual and talk about some ideas that you may or may not be implementing currently as a provider, and what you can do about it. So we'll go to Q&A now. But overall, like as a provider myself at Steadway, we've used Izango for over a year now. I have got a complete love affair with the system and the stuff, and it satiates my geek on a daily basis. The team is such a pleasure to work with, and the customization functionalities are just unparalleled. Like I've got a general manager that works for me called Miriana, and she's a wonderful professional that has worked for organizations as big as like Life Without Barriers, also some of the medium-sized ones. And the way that she looked at Izango when she first used it, she went, "Oh my God, this isn't doing so what this does beats some of the big systems that I've used to work with over the last 10 years. And, wow, look at the customizations that are possible." So
That's the
overall,
power of
like
customization. We also had a webinar that day, saying power of customization. So if someone hasn't gone through that, I think should go and
yes,
see what all like anything and everything, because anything and everything is possible provided you know what you exactly want. So you just tell us
exactly.
the problem statement and we tell you how we're going to resolve it in the system.
Exactly. And look, there are other systems that I love, like HubSpot and Aircall, and again, webinars and that. But overall, like more and more, I just kind of live and breathe inside of the Izango system, and we're just here today to talk about some best practice things. So let's segue to questions here. And I'm just going to go to what's in the chat box. So again, if you've got questions, please type them in now. Byron Drazier says, if sharing with all support workers, can you ensure that the client's name is private?
Yes, Byron. Hi, Byron. How are you? Yes, Byron, because in this, anyhow, it is working the same way. Because when we are posting it as a learning, it's as a case study. It is not going to go which participant it is referring to, which staff it is referring to. It's just about the incident, like what is a learning out of that incident. It's not going to specify anybody's name. It's just what happened in that incident and what can we learn about that incident. And that case study is also prepared by you, whatever you want to show, that also can be tailored as per your need.
So if we're typing in that box that says, what's in the knowledge base, is it correct that it's therefore not referring specifically to the private details of that particular incident?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So we as managers, we can go in the back end of the reporting and see that this particular incident led to something that we posted to the knowledge base, which is good for our knowledge. Sorry, excuse the pun. Good for our awareness.
Yeah.
And also good for the audit process.
Right.
I guess the point is that to speak to your point there, that it's neutral and it's private in terms of what the staff just see inside of the knowledge base. It's like, we had an incident, this was a case study, neutral, private information, but whenever this type of thing happens, let's learn from this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good question, Aaron. Thank you for that. Yeah, well, that's a good one. Gosh, I'm trying to think of anything else. Are there any other kind of, things you wanted to add whilst we're waiting for any further questions, Ria, in terms of, things that you feel are important, or whether there's any changes coming in Izango to add to the functionality?
We making changes every now and then. So because everything that comes as a problem is a thing for us to solve, of how we're giving it back to the community. That's
Yeah.
where it is more important.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go. Here's another question. Is this a fair understanding of some of the value of the knowledge base? It takes the admin hours out of the documentation and compliance and leaves the leadership role of identifying strategies to open to management. Yeah, I think I know what you mean there. Yes, I mean, so what it is, Byron, is that direct connection of like, okay, I feel like as human beings, we're all liable to procrastination, right? So procrastination could look like, if we didn't have this knowledge-based function, it could like, oh, we should probably do a course on that. Oh, we should probably get everyone together and train them about this. And it goes on the to-do list, and that to-do list doesn't always happen, right? Whereas if you've got it, think about UX, user experience. If you've got that little button that you can go click, here's the outcome, publish, it's done.
Exactly. And also, if there is any kind of documents, like not just documents, for example, it can be anything which they want them to read through as well. For example, if there is a new thing which has come up, and company thinks that it might be more helpful for our staff to read through this, that's what they can just put out in knowledge base.
Correct.
It's not just related to incident, it can also be beyond incidents.
Now, whenever I publish a shift, for example, in Izango, or there's a message on the group chat or whatever, it does a push notification to the app.
Yes.
Is there a push notification if you do something on the knowledge base?
Yes, it is. It is. That something new has been published. Please go read out.
There you go. When I did a webinar on text messaging, in terms of the benefits of, using text messages as a provider, one of the statistics that I referred to is that an SMS in particular has got a 90% open rate, right? 90% open rate, and the reply rate for an SMS is 1 to 2 minutes. So the reason I use that as an analogy to push notifications is that when we see these little ding, ding, dings, on our phones, it's the dopamine hit. Like, it grabs our attention, and there's part of you that's go, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Click.
And especially the SMS might be, it has come through for them to do something, but the push notification always builds a curiosity. And when it says there's something new, please go see it. So general public like us as well, we've got an intention to go click and see what exists there. So
and it annoys our brain until we've clicked it. Our phones say, oh, you've still got to action the push notification, so to speak. So it's good. I guess my point is, a push notification in my mind is very, very similar to the benefit of a text message, because it kind of appears the same on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And cost effective as well.
Oh yeah. Well, it's cost effective because it doesn't cost you anything, does it? It's part of your subscription.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And it works with Android and Apple and all that stuff. So I suppose just to kind of, unless there's any further questions, we'll start wrapping things up. One of the things that I'm just putting in the chat here is also the ability to book a demo with either Ria or someone from the team. So I'd highly recommend doing it. I can't recommend it enough. For those who've seen webinars before with me and Ria, forgive me repeating this, but I'm autistic myself, and therefore I'm actually really detailed and I'm very granular. And when I booked in poor Ria for a demo 12 months ago, I put the poor lady through 4 hours. But she was able to answer all the questions. It's like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. This is how it works. So sometimes you gotta see it to feel it and experience the system. I'd highly recommend that.
And all the questions are welcome. Do not think about even if it's a small question, I'm ready to answer. You don't have to think before asking.
Correct. And that's also one of the big, we spoke about culture before, didn't we, Ria? And I know I'm really, you know, complimenting here, but there's a big cultural difference at Izango compared to other software companies. And that cultural difference is that every question is welcome, and actually there's a response and a competency to build in that technical solution that happens remarkably quickly. Whereas most other software providers, it goes on the queue or it goes on the suggested ideas list. And that suggested ideas list is the metaphor of, the dusty shelf that never gets done. That doesn't happen at Izango. It actually gets actioned.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, I mean that, because the number of requests I've thrown at you guys, and you've caught every ball, and you've just put it in place.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Let me just see. Are there any final questions? Yeah. Okay. We do have one final question, I think, from Byron again. So thanks for that. Okay. The job board. So you said you can post a job to past workers, align preferences. If so, how are those staff preferences added to know if they align with the participants? Okay. That's something that I want to talk about, actually. So this is something, Ria, that may be rolled out over time or whatever with other ones and only available in enterprise. But I'll just tell you my experience of this. Currently, Izango and my business are working on a very cool project where we're using this idea of preferences, but we're calling them attributes, right? So the idea of an attribute is, in all seriousness, you might need someone. You might need someone that has manual handling experience. You might need someone that's okay with cats and not allergic to dogs or whatever. There's hundreds of things that are qualities and competencies of a support worker that are necessary to know. Right, that's the support worker side. But on the other side of things, you've got what are the attributes that a client requires. Right, so the client might require manual handling or good with cats or whatever. So you need to be able to marry together those two worlds, right? So what we're currently implementing is an amazing project, is the ability of matching those things together. And what you do is you layer the granularity of attributes, and then you also match in gender preferences, age preferences if you want. And we're also layering on geography, because we're talking about having a huge geographic reach. And we want to know that only support workers with those skill sets, the right gender, the right age, and within 30-kilometer radius of the actual client's address, all of that matches, and therefore only those people see it on the job board. And this is something we're working on now, and it blows my mind in terms of the ability to do. It's like online dating. You should only go out with the people for a drink that's worth having a drink with.
True.
Yeah. So do you have anything to add to that? Because that's a very exciting project.
I think you've said everything in so detail with so much passion, and I think Byron does get it as well.
Yes, exactly. So Byron, you can do all the basics that you'll need, mate, gender and all that kind of stuff. But you can add in all this extra stuff, and it's incredible for scaling your business. Because I tell you what happens when you scale, Ria, you have to go beyond what's in my head and your head and the team leader's head and the operations manager's head. It needs to just be click, report, assign, right workers. That's it. The system should do the thinking for you. You just need to give it the data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can see Byron has written that staff fill that out when they are onboarded. Yes, but I think it's more towards participant than staff. Because
it is both. But sorry to interrupt, but Byron, yes, it is yes to that. So the idea, what we're doing is, one of Ria's colleagues that I collaborate with is we're going to have a staff form that they fill in, and they basically cherry pick the things that apply to them. So it's yes, good with cats, yes, good with manual handling, and therefore
that has to be matched with the participant as well. So that's what I'm saying. So it has to be put in both. So that's why we say it's a participant-led approach, because we want to give out, staff can tell, yes, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and all that stays in the participant profile. But what we are focusing on is what participant is needing. Is participant needing someone doing this? Yes. If it matches the staff profile, yes, it is, this person is applicable for doing this shift for this particular participant.
Correct. Very powerful function that's currently being rolled out, and I literally don't know of a system that can do it that well. So highly recommend it. So yes. Cool. All right. Well, listen, if there's not any further questions, again, I'll just really recommend that people you book a demo with Izango. It's a wonderful system and great team to know of. And if you do have any questions on the webinar, just please send me an email and I'm happy to answer those. It's chris@peakprovider.com.au. Let me just put that in the chat. In a second. There we go. And yeah, I'm happy to address whatever questions come up as you think of them afterwards.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Chris.
Thank you, Ria. It's really good
Thanks
to see you.
everybody for joining.
I always learn something just chatting with you, so thank you for your time today.
Same here, likewise.
Cool. All right, everyone. Love you too. Thanks for dialing in,
Thank
and yeah, appreciate everyone's time. We'll speak to you soon. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.